appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route. There's numerous people running up the hill.
On the 22nd of November 1963, U.S. President John F. Kennedy is assassinated in Dallas, Texas.
The policeman says, no, you cannot come in here. You cannot come in here.
For 50 years, the truth behind the tragic events has been veiled by secrecy, conspiracy theories, and classified government records. Now, two experts have re-examined the evidence, and their conclusions are startling. Could Kennedy's secret killer have been hiding in plain sight all along? The basic facts of the most famous assassination in history are simple.
The usual welcoming committee presents Mrs. Kennedy with a bouquet of red roses.
It's a routine visit to Dallas on the presidential campaign trail. The sun is shining, the people are welcoming, and the top of the presidential limo is down.
The president's car is now turning onto Elm Street, and it will be only a matter of minutes before he arrives at the trademark.
At 12:30 p.m., shots are fired. President John F. Kennedy is mortally wounded, and Texas Governor John Connally is seriously injured.
It was definitely the president's car. We can see the First Lady's pink suit. That's the only identification we could.
Both men are rushed to nearby Parkland Hospital. Half an hour later, President Kennedy is pronounced dead.
The President of the United States is dead.
Kennedy's suspected killer, Lee Harvey Oswald, 45 minutes after the assassination, murders a police officer. He's then arrested in a Dallas movie theater. Then President Kennedy's body is flown to Washington for the autopsy. 2 days later, Dallas club owner Jack Ruby shoots and kills Kennedy murder suspect Oswald.
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
The next day, President Kennedy is buried at Arlington Cemetery. That's where the accepted facts of the Kennedy assassination end, and the mystery of what actually happened begins. Supreme Court Chief Justice Earl Warren is appointed by new President Lyndon Johnson to investigate widespread suspicion that Lee Harvey Oswald was part of a greater criminal plot.
Oswald's Carcano rifle.
Over the next 10 months, in closed court sessions, 552 witnesses give testimony to the Warren Commission, resulting in an 888-page report released to the public. Yet, 50 years later, President Kennedy's murder is still shrouded in suspicion, mystery, and conspiracy theories. How can a crime that is witnessed by hundreds of people, filmed by at least 30, watched by millions on TV, and repeatedly investigated, remain the subject of such speculation? Veteran detective Colin McLaren spent 18 years in the Australian police force, investigating the country's most baffling crimes. He makes a surprising discovery when he turns his formidable skills on the JFK case.
I learned that no other career detective had ever undertaken a cold case study, a forensic analysis of all of the evidence, all of the testimony, and I wanted to be the first. One thing I had to do is I had to see the crime scene. Once I got there, I looked up at the 6th floor of the book depository. I had great trouble understanding why 24 Secret Service agents hadn't seen a man with a gun. Oswald's perch was much smaller, much tighter than I ever imagined from all of the photographs I studied. The thing that struck me most about this case, that even after 50 years, with the majority of the American people rejecting the Warren Commission findings, it's those findings that stand today.
McLaren knows he's not the first person to seriously question the Warren Commission's findings. In 1967, American news network CBS put these findings to the test.
CBS News had a tower and target track constructed to match exactly the heights and distances in Dealey Plaza. The target, a standard FBI silhouette, moved by electric motor at 11 miles an hour. approximately the speed of the presidential limousine. 11 volunteer marksmen took turns, firing clips of 3 bullets each at the moving target.
The CBS special asks, is it physically possible to fire 3 rounds in 5.6 seconds or less, using the antiquated Mannlicher Carcano bolt-action rifle Lee Harvey Oswald had used?
It is a clumsy weapon to bring to that sort of a fight. Lee Harvey Oswald, let's be honest, he had a bit of junk.
A weapons engineer had the best score. 3 hits in 5.2 seconds.
So CBS concludes that it is plausible to fire the 3 shots on target in less than 5.6 seconds.
Here we have an outstanding ballistics man who did that controlled test. However, it was his 3rd attempt. So he had a few rehearsals. Lee Harvey Oswald, he was on the fly. He had his gun out and he was pointing it and he was shooting. He had no rehearsals and he was riddled with obviously adrenaline and pressure, nerves and probably fear. So I can't accept that he could get 3 away in that amount of time at all.
Neither could Howard Donahue. Not only was he the best marksman, he was also a ballistics expert. His test on CBS News launches him into a personal investigation that would eventually reveal who really killed JFK. In 1967, a popular men's magazine asks Howard Donahue, a weapons engineer, to write an article backing the Warren Commission's conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald is the lone gunman responsible for killing JFK. First, Donahue looks at ballistics. The Warren Commission concluded that Oswald fired 3 shots. His first shot passed through Kennedy's neck, wounding him and Texas Governor John Connally. Oswald's second shot missed entirely, and his third shot hit JFK in the head and killed him. Donahue decides to examine each of the 3 shots. What the commission said was Oswald's first shot is probably the most contentious. The commission found that the bullet struck President Kennedy at the base of his neck, just to the right of his spine, exited his throat below the Adam's apple, struck Governor Connally beneath and behind his right armpit, shattered 4 inches of Connally's 5th rib, exited below his right nipple, and crashed through his right wrist, before finally lodging 2 inches deep in Connally's left thigh. For many critics of the Warren Commission, the position of the 2 men in the presidential limousine rules out the single bullet theory. The critics find it preposterous that a bullet slanting down from the right rear of the president could pierce his throat, make a sharp right turn, enter the extreme right side of Connally's back. But Donahue discovers that Connally and his wife are riding in jump seats. The jump seats were close to the center of the car and lower than the bench seats the Kennedys rode in, which means that Governor Connally was sitting lower down and further inboard than it appeared. Donahue places Connally where he was actually sitting, with his body turned. Now, the bullet's trajectory lines up perfectly. He proves that the Warren Commission's often ridiculed single bullet theory is in fact correct. Critics of the Warren Commission also argue that the bullet is too pristine to have ripped through 2 men. But to his trained eye, the bullet was in fact deformed. This contention that the bullet was perfect was a fallacy. This is further proof to Donahue that the Warren Commission's single bullet theory was correct. But does the bullet match Oswald's rifle?
Mr. Frazier.
Firearms expert FBI agent Robert Frazier answers that question before the Warren Commission.
Hospital following assassination. Are you familiar with this exhibit?
Yes, sir. This is a bullet which was delivered to me in the FBI laboratory on November 22nd.
And did you examine this exhibit to determine whether it had been fired in Exhibit 139, Lee Harvey Oswald's Carcano rifle?
Yes, sir.
And what was your conclusion?
It was. Exhibit 399 was fired from the rifle 139.
The FBI tests showed that the marks on the bullet matched the chamber of Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle. That's equivalent to fingerprints.
Donahue agrees that the single bullet struck the president and Connally, but he wonders if that was actually the first of the 3 shots, as the commission stated. Even the surviving victim, Governor Connally, disagrees with the Commission's findings.
I am convinced beyond any doubt that I was not struck by the first bullet. I know that I heard the first shot, that I turned to my right to see what was happening. Seeing nothing, I was in the process of turning to my left, and I was struck by a second shot. The third shot struck the President, but did not strike me. Now, as I said earlier, this testimony was presented to the Warren Commission. They chose to disagree with my interpretation and my memory of what had occurred.
Donahue discovers that senior Secret Service agent Roy Kellerman's testimony also contradicts the Commission's order of shots. Kellerman was riding in the front seat of the presidential limousine.
That's right, sir.
He describes what he heard after the first shot.
There was a report like a firecracker, pop. And as I turned my head to the right to view whatever it was or see whatever it was, I heard a voice from the back seat, and I firmly believe it was the President's. My God, I'm hit.
Donahue wondered how President Kennedy could say this if that first shot had cut through his throat and windpipe, the way the Commission said it did.
Why did the Warren Commission say that the first shot hit JFK in the back of the neck? There is ample corroborative evidence from many witnesses that saw the first shot hit the pavement and ricochet off.
Virgie Rashley was a bookkeeper at the book depository. In her Warren Commission statement, she says she saw a bullet bouncing off the roadway.
I saw a shot or something hit the pavement.
What did it look like when you saw it?
Well, as I said, I thought it was a firecracker. It looked just like you could see the sparks from it.
Is it possible that a fragment from this ricocheting bullet struck Kennedy, causing him to exclaim, "My God, I'm hit," before he was shot through the neck by the second bullet? Donahue thinks so, and is now convinced that the Warren Commission got the order of the first two shots wrong. Next, he turns his attention to the bullet that delivered JFK a fatal headshot. Dr. James Humes is the pathologist in charge at the Bethesda Naval Hospital. He conducts the President's autopsy just a few hours after his assassination. When Humes testifies before the Warren Commission, he's asked to describe the damage the third shot inflicted.
The third obvious wound at the time of the examination was a huge defect over the right side of the skull. This defect involved both the scalp and the underlying skull, and the brain substance protruding.
According to Humes' testimony, the wound extended 10 to 12 centimeters back to front, from just behind the President's ear to just above his hairline. This enormous wound is a total mystery. One bullet pierces the bodies of two men and emerges in one piece. Yet the bullet that hit Kennedy in the head explodes in a hail of lead. Why did these bullets perform so differently?
This is not the work of a 4-metal jacket bullet. This is more the work of a frangible bullet that is designed to explode violently upon impact.
Colin McLaren wants to see the difference in bullet performance, starting with the full metal jacket bullet that Oswald used in his Kakano rifle.
This is a 4-metal jacket round. It's a Kakano 6.5mm round. It's designed for warfare. It's designed to travel.
Ready to fire. Firing. Colin, I think we're seeing a typical full metal jacket drive-through. Drills a hole, clean as a whistle.
This is a .223 frangible hollow point round. It's designed to explode upon impact, and the results are devastating.
Range is going hot, ears and eyes, ready to fire.
As a ballistics expert,